Hello everybody, I hope you're having a good 2014 so far, and I decided, since college hasn't started yet, and I'm pretty much free with free time, I'm going to shoot out as many videos as I possibly can at the moment, and everybody else is doing it, so I'm going to do it too. Why not discuss my most anticipated movies of the 2014 year? Summer, fall, spring, everywhere. I was going to do something where I did top 14 because of the year 2014, but then I thought that'd be cheesy, and other people have already done that, so I'd be copying off of them. But, before we jump into this list, just like with the best and worst from last year, I want to jump into some honorable mentions. I gathered up 4 here, and out of these 4, 3 of them are comedies. One is family related. The family related one is Muppets Most Wanted. It's the sequel to the 2011 revitalization of the Muppets movie with Jason Segel, and I love that movie so much, and I love the Muppets. They were a big part of my childhood. I'm a little worrisome about this one, but I think it's going to pull through and have a lot of good comedy. It's going to have a lot of laughs. It could be a lot of fun, and I can't wait for it. The next one is a Seth MacFarlane directed comedy, Million Ways to Die in the West, and most people love Ted. Most people love Seth MacFarlane. I mean, I like his humor a lot. I don't love his humor. I don't watch Family Guy anymore, but I dig what he does. And him going into Westerns, it's like this is going to be his Blazing Saddles. And I'm not trying to compare Seth MacFarlane and Mel Brooks, but he's pretty popular, and he could have a big impact on the industry with comedies. And if this movie's as good as Ted was, then it could be a blast. The final comedy out of these 4 movies is Dumb and Dumber 2, T.O., and Dumb and Dumber, the first one, came out in 1994. This will be 20 years to date. And Jim Carrey has been in a couple of comedies since recently, Yes Man, but he hasn't really done anything zany like he used to, and hopefully he can retain that magic that he had back in the 90s and early 2000s, because who doesn't love Jim Carrey? All we could do right now is cross our fingers and hope for the best, because Anchorman 2, thankfully, was not a disappointment. It was actually a blast, and if this one turns out the opposite, huge bummer, dude. And the last honorable mention comes from the cinematographer of a lot of Christopher Nolan movies. It's his directorial debut. It stars Johnny Depp. It's called Transcendence, and the premise really intrigues me. The trailer wasn't the best, but I feel like this is going to be one of those movies where the trailer doesn't represent all that well what the movie is, and the movie's actually going to be a really solid film in general. It's got a great cast, a promising story, and it could be a really good movie. Now for the big boys. Here are my top 10 most anticipated movies of the year. Number 10 is the sequel to a 2012 comedy that was the reboot of an old TV series that starred Johnny Depp, 22 Jump Street. It stars Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill. The trailer made me very nervous because I didn't laugh all that much, but I feel like they're hiding a lot. And 21 Jump Street was one of my favorite movies of 2012. It made me laugh a lot. Hopefully this one does the same. Number 9 is The Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, the sequel to The Rise of the Planet of the Apes. God, that can get annoying to project out of the voice box. The first one was a pleasant surprise, and it was a great movie. It was really highly enjoyable, and it had a great performance by Andy Serkis as Caesar the Ape. This one looks a lot darker, a lot more intense. It has a really good cast along with it, but not including James Franco, unfortunately. They scrapped him for this movie. It could be a great movie. Hopefully, fingers crossed. It comes from the director David Fincher, who's one of my favorite directors out there right now. He made The Social Network, he made Seven, he made The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, he made Zodiac. He's a great director. It's called Gone Girl. It stars Ben Affleck, and it has Neil Patrick Harris, Tyler Perry, and a few other people in there who are surprisingly oddball choices, but I'm very intrigued. It releases in the fall, which is essentially his best playing ground, and he's bound to hit a home run with this movie. I can't wait for it. Number 7 is the final installment to The Hobbit, There and Back Again. The cliffhanger to Desolation of Smaug was one of the craziest cliffhangers I've seen in a long time, and it left me with my balls hanging. Don't visualize that, by the way. That's all I have to say. Really, it all comes down to 2 words, that cliffhanger. Coming in at number 6 is the latest X-Men movie, Days of Future Past. It blends the old cast with nostalgia with the new cast of First Class. It has the return of the great Bryan Singer, who made the first 2 movies, which I love oh so dearly. And a lot is riding on this movie, because if it's great, then, this X-Men franchise is truly revitalized. Otherwise, because it could flop as well, it could be a big, giant flop. But it's X-Men, it's Bryan Singer, it's got Sentinels, it's got Tyrion from Game of Thrones as the villain. That's a shout out to all my 90s boys. Coming in at number 5 is the most obscure blockbuster releasing this year in my opinion, Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a Marvel movie, the last Marvel movie that leads up to the second Avengers movie. It takes place entirely intergalactic. It's got a talking raccoon, a talking tree, Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana in another sci-fi movie, and it's got James Gunn at the director's helm. Everybody else is saying similar things, but it's true. The movie seems so weird that you can't help but you have to get excited for it because it's so out there, and it's a movie that is really risky. And if it pays off, it's going to pay off huge. I used to be big on comics, and it takes a lot for a person like me to read comics now, but I've been reading the Guardians of the Galaxy comics recently, and they are awesome. Rocket Raccoon could be one of the greatest characters in Marvel movie history. Possibly, if they pull this off. Boom, you're dead. Boom, you're dead. Boom, you're dead. Coming in at number 4 is Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Captain America is one of my favorite superheroes of all time, and I really actually adored the first movie, because some people were underwhelmed by it. I actually really enjoyed it, and I still do to this day. It's a little cheesy, but I love it. This movie looks like it's taking a more grounded approach, and it's involving S.H.I.E.L.D. more, and there's some espionage, spy work. I've heard a lot of things about it. I've heard the script is amazing. I've heard the characterization is something else. I've heard the story is really good. I've heard the story of the Winter Soldier from the comics perspective is one of the best ones out there in history. That elevator scene alone, I saw the whole thing before The Hobbit. Some intense, amazing stuff. It looks absolutely phenomenal with Chris Evans back as Captain America fighting and kicking ass in Washington, D.C. I can't wait for it. I'm so psyched. Coming in at number 3 is... How was that? Godzilla. I grew up with all the old Godzilla movies. Me and a few friends, my brother and his friends used to watch these movies all the time. And I can't tell you how excited I am for this. I dig the approach they're taking here. It's post 9/11, it's apocalyptic, and it seems very emotional and grounded. And if something like this were to really happen, what would we do in a situation? There seems to be no cheese. It looks like it's going straight into the shit, and that's awesome. But just like I've been discussing with the other movies, hopefully this one lives up to the hype as well, because if it doesn't, it's going to be very disappointing. Because I want this movie to be amazing. I want it to be amazing! But it might not be. You never know. Pray. Coming in at number 2 is Interstellar, directed by the Christopher Nolan, who's made the Batman trilogy, the recent one, Inception, Memento, Prestige. What we know about it right now is that he's directing it. Matthew McConaughey, among other stars in it, and it's about sci-fi, wormholes, and time travel in space. And that's all I need. I'm already sold. All hail Nolan. All hail Nolan. All hail Nolan. Nolan Knights unite. And coming in at number 1, if you know me, this is completely expected. The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Now, the first movie that came out 2 years ago, I'm a huge fan of the Raimi movies, except for number 3. But the new one, the reboot, I actually appreciate it for what it was, and it has a lot of flaws, but I also dig a lot of it as well. And at first, I hated the idea of a reboot, but what they're doing right now with this franchise, I'm very excited about. With the Venom spinoff, Sinister Six, they're making a universe out of Spider-Man, and that's awesome. But this movie has a lot riding on it, because Mark Webb has finally gotten out of the tangled web that is the Origin, so now he can do whatever he wants. So now we have Electro, we have the Green Goblin with the Osborns, we have the expanded universe in New York with these characters and villains. We have the Gwen Stacy arc, which I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but it could be awesome if it's executed right. A lot is riding on this movie, because this can go either one of two ways. One, the movie will be a big hit, and it'll be great critically and financially, and it'll spawn what could be something that's greater than the Raimi franchise from back in the day. Or it could suck, and this franchise will be forever ruined. Or it'll be tarnished for a long time. One day I'm going to make a video concerning this movie entirely in general because I have a lot to say about it and what's going to happen with it. But I have faith in Mark Webb, the cast, and the crew to make an amazing sequel because Spider-Man 2, the first one from 2004, is one of my favorite movies of all time. This movie is either going to be great or absolutely terrible. It's no middle ground. It's going to be up or down. But I really have a lot of faith in this movie to be one of the best comic book movies of all time. That is how great, potentially, I think it could be. Because if it's not, I'm going to have a lot of words to eat. I was also an extra who shot for 2 days on location in the Lower East Side of Manhattan, so that excites me because I might be in the movie for like 5 seconds. Probably not. Dough. But that basically wraps and sums up my most anticipated movies of 2014, but I want to know from you guys, what are you excited for this year? Put your top 5 or top 10 in the comments down below, and do you agree with me or disagree with me with my top 3 or 5? What do you think about Amazing Spider-Man 2? You could be candid and frank with me about that movie, because if you're not looking forward to it, I don't care, because I know a lot of people are hating on it already because of the first movie. Be reasonable, please. My life revolves around Spider-Man, so I have a reason to be hyped for it. I don't care. So, if you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe to my channel, MaffmanJones, so you'll never, ever, ever miss a movie review or video from me ever again. Also, check out my Facebook, my Twitter, and Wheel of Film accounts in the info box. I'm John Maffio, aka MaffmanJones, and hopefully 2014 brings a lot of surprises, aside from the movies I'm excited for already, because this can be an amazing year. Literally, amazing, because, Spider-Man, amazing, get it? Get it? I'm done. See you next time.